dream destinations, exceptional cruises, polar adventures. Welcome to Beyond the Horizon, the podcast that takes you where the journey truly begins. A production of Area Voyages.
If you want to eat at, like, the undisputed best restaurant on planet Earth, you don't go to Paris.
No, definitely not.
Right. You don't fly to Tokyo or New York or Copenhagen. You actually fly to a coastal desert that's just covered in this persistent, almost permanent gray mist in this sprawling city where it literally hasn't properly rained in decades. You fly to Lima.
Yeah, it is. It's honestly one of the greatest geographical and culinary curveballs in the world.
It really is.
Yeah.
So today we are basically dismantling everything you think you know about Peru. We're taking a deep dive into this incredibly comprehensive travel dossier. It's the 2026 update of the ultimate travel guide to PRU from Area Voyages.
And, you know, if you're tuning in expecting us to just, like, read off a basic itinerary.
Yeah, like a polite little top 10 list of places to take photos or whatever.
Exactly, you're in a wrong place. Our mission today is to really decode the fundamental forces of this country. We want to look at the geography, the brutal history, the biology, and the highly specific logistics of a nation that essentially stacks human culture and extreme ecosystems on top of each other.
Like a high-stakes geological experiment.
That's a great way to put it. We want to make sure that when you go, you're actually adapting to this environment, not just, passing blindly through it.
Because right off the bat, unpacking this dossier reveals this massive truth, which is that Peru is not a convenient destination.
Definitely not.
I mean, this is not a place you just end up in on a whim because you found a cheap flight on a Tuesday night. You don't just stumble your way into the Amazon rainforest.
No.
And you certainly don't accident your way up to 3,400 meters of elevation in the Andes. Doing this right requires really deep intent.
It demands intent largely because of the overarching geographical framework of the country. And this is sort of the central theme we're going to keep returning to today. Human adaptation to extreme geography.
Yeah.
Everything in Peru. I mean, the food, the architecture, the history, the literal air you breathe is dictated by the fact that the country spans 3 completely distinct, brutal ecological zones.
Okay, let's unpack those zones.
So you have the Costa, which is that narrow coastal desert strip. Then you have the Sierra, which are the massive, towering Andean highlands. And finally, you have the Selva, the vast Amazon rainforest basin, which, and this surprises a lot of people, actually covers more than half of the national territory.
Wait, hold on. More than half the country is Amazon rainforest.
Yeah, over 50%.
That's wild. Because I feel like the default image everyone has of Peru is just entirely mountains and stone ruins.
It's such a common misconception. The Andes are the spine, sure, but the Amazon is the lungs and really the bulk of the landmass. But what shocks first-time visitors isn't just the grandeur of any single one of these zones, it's the compression.
The compression.
Yeah, it's the way tectonic plates have just smashed the deep Pacific Ocean trench right up against the towering Andes, with the Amazon basin sitting immediately on the other side. So you have world-class food, pre-Columbian history, and dense jungle all operating in a ridiculously tight proximity.
So as a traveler, where do you even start? I mean, if the geography is that intense, I feel like trying to tackle the desert, the mountains, and the jungle all at once is just a recipe for a total meltdown.
Oh, absolutely. And that's exactly why we start where almost everyone is forced to land at sea level. We begin in that coastal desert we mentioned earlier. We begin in Lima.
Let's talk about Lima, because I have to admit, there's this overwhelming urge for travelers, and myself included initially, to just touch down at the airport, see this massive, traffic-heavy, gray city, and immediately flee.
Right, the instinct is just, get me to the mountains immediately, this isn't the postcard I signed up for.
Exactly. But diving into this material really pushes back on that instinct.
It really does. And to understand Lima, you have to understand why it looks the way it does. The sky is famously gray for more than half the year, from like May to November. The locals call this mist the garua.
And it's not rain, right? It's just this heavy hanging moisture.
Yeah.
But why does that even happen in a desert?
It's this really fascinating meteorological mechanism. You have the Humboldt Current, which is an extremely cold ocean current flowing up from Antarctica along the South American coast.
Okay.
So that freezing water cools the air sitting right above the Pacific. But higher up in the atmosphere, the air is warm.
No, so it traps it.
Exactly. It creates an atmospheric inversion layer. The cold, heavy, moisture-rich air is physically trapped by the warm air above it, so it can't rise to form actual rain clouds. So instead of rain, you just get this dense, persistent sea fog, the garua blanketing the coastal desert.
Okay, that actually makes it sound incredibly cool. It's not just quote-unquote bad weather. It's like a permanent atmospheric glitch.
That's a good way to look at it.
It puts this moody, cinematic filter over the whole city. And realistically, to experience the best of Lima, you don't need to navigate the entire metropolis. You just need to focus on two essential districts that are hanging right on the edge of the Pacific cliffs.
Right. Miraflores and Barranco.
Yeah. So Miraflores is kind of your practical base. It's modern, it's upscale, highly secure. You have this dramatic clifftop promenade called the Malecon, where you can literally watch paragliders jumping off into the mist.
It's stunning.
And then you've got Parque Kennedy right in the center, which is famously filled with dozens of like really well-fed, lounging stray cats.
Yeah, Miraflores provides all the logistical comfort you need. But just to the south, you seamlessly transition into Barranco.
The bohemian heart of the city.
Exactly. Barranco is built around this natural ravine that leads down to the sea. Historically, it was actually a summer retreat for the wealthy, but now it's very artsy, independent. It has the famous wooden bridge of sighs. I'd say if Miraflores is where you wake up and walk along the cliffs in the morning, Barranco is absolutely the neighborhood you want to be migrating toward in the evening.
And the reason you're heading there in the evening brings us back to my opening point. Because the most compelling reason to stay in Lima, the thing that honestly stops you from fleeing to the mountains on day one, is the staggering food revolution.
Oh, yes.
I'm not exaggerating when I say this city is a global culinary apex. I mean, look at the 2026 data from the dossier. A restaurant in Miraflores called Maido was named the absolute best restaurant in the world.
Chef Mitsuo Tsumura's masterpiece.
Yes. And what he serves there is called Nikkei cuisine. It's this incredible merging of Peruvian ingredients with Japanese techniques.
And we should probably explain how that fusion happened, because it's definitely not some modern marketing gimmick. Peru actually has the second largest ethnic Japanese population in South America.
Wait, really? I had no idea.
Yeah, it stems from late 19th century immigration. When Japanese immigrants arrived, they obviously couldn't find their traditional ingredients, so they just started applying their highly precise, delicate cooking techniques to Peru's explosive biodiversity.
And the result is mind-blowing. The dossier highlights Maido's 50-hour short rib. 50 hours. And their tiradito, which is essentially Peruvian ceviche, but it's sliced like Japanese sashimi and bathed in these complex citrus and chili sauces. It's just a perfect historical marriage on a plate.
It really is. But you know, Maido isn't an isolated anomaly. Just a few blocks away in Barranco, you have Central, which held the title of Best Restaurant in the World in 2023, and Cayol, run by Chef Pilion, which consistently ranks in the global top 10.
Yeah.
And the conceptual brilliance of what Chef Virgilio Martinez does at Central is almost hard to overstate. He doesn't just serve a tasting menu, he serves a literal altitude map of Peru.
It's insane. You are literally eating a geography lesson.
Exactly.
The menu is organized by elevation. So you start with marine ingredients sourced from like 10 meters below sea level in the Pacific. Then the next course moves you up to the coastal desert. Then you're eating root vegetables from 2,000 meters up in the Andes.
Mm-hmm.
Then you dip into the Amazon basin for some exotic fruit you've literally never heard of. And you finish with these high Andean tubers sourced from over 4,000 meters high.
It's a masterclass in biodiversity.
Okay.
And again, let's look at the why. Why is the pantry here so deep? It's that geographical compression we talked about earlier. When the Pacific Ocean collides with the towering Andes and the deep Amazon, it creates hundreds of isolated microclimates.
Right.
Just look at the potato. The average person in North America or Europe might know, 3 or 4 types of potatoes from their local supermarket?
Yeah, like a russet, a Yukon Gold, maybe a red potato.
Right.
Completely standardized.
Right. But in Peru, there are over 3,000 native varieties of potato.
3,000.
3,000. Different shapes, colors, textures, all built to survive freezing altitudes or severe drought conditions. When you combine that immense, ancient biological diversity with centuries of cultural fusion, indigenous Andean traditions mixing with Spanish, African, Chinese, and Japanese influences, you get a flavor profile that literally does not exist anywhere else on the planet.
And this whole movement actually started decades ago. The origin point is widely considered to be a restaurant called Astrid y Gastón, which opened way back in 1994. They basically launched the gastronomic revolution that told Peruvians, hey, our native ingredients are actually worthy of fine dining.
Yeah, they changed the whole paradigm.
So today you can go to Lima and experience tasting menus that rival the absolute best of Paris or Tokyo, but because of the local economics, it's often at a considerably lower price point.
It is entirely worth delaying your trip to the mountains for. But there is one cultural stop in Lima that is equally crucial before you leave, the Larco Museum in the Pueblo Libre district.
Yes, I was hoping we'd get to this. It's housed in this stunning 18th century colonial mansion covered in bougainvillea. They hold 45,000 pre-Columbian artifacts that span 5,000 years of civilization. But what really floored me reading about this isn't just what they have, but how they show it.
Oh, the reserve gallery.
Right, because usually when you go to a museum like the Smithsonian or the British Museum, you're seeing maybe, 5% of their collection. The rest is locked away in some dark, climate-controlled basement.
But the Larco Museum completely flips that model.
They have this reserve gallery where thousands upon thousands of ceramic objects are just visibly stored in these massive floor-to-ceiling glass cabinets. You can just walk the aisles. You aren't just looking at one carefully curated pot on a pedestal. You are looking at the sheer, overwhelming industrial-scale volume of ancient artistic production.
It really recontextualizes things.
It does. It makes you realize that the Incas weren't just this brief blip in history. They were the final chapter of thousands of years of complex societies.
It gives you that necessary sense of scale. It perfectly sets the stage. Because once you understand the depth of that history and you've tasted the high altitude ingredients at a place like Central, you are physically and mentally prepared to pivot. It's time to leave the misty coastal desert and head up into the thin, unforgiving air of the Andes.
Which brings us to the most brutal biological reality check of the entire trip. We are moving from sea level to 3,400 meters. We are heading to Cusco.
The transition from the Costa to the Sierra.
Okay, let's put ourselves in the shoes of the listener here.
Yeah.
You take a short, 1 hour and 20-minute flight from Lima. You land, you grab your bag off the carousel, you take your first few steps toward the exit, and suddenly you feel like you have just run a marathon while trying to breathe through a cocktail straw.
Yeah.
Your heart is pounding. Your head feels tight. That is the physical reality of stepping out at 3,400 meters.
And we cannot emphasize this enough. Altitude sickness is not a tourist cliche. It is a profound, highly aggressive biological condition called hypoxia.
Let's break down exactly what is happening in the body there, because I think a lot of people just assume the air, quote unquote, has less oxygen.
Right, that's a really common misunderstanding. The percentage of oxygen in the air at 3,400 meters is actually exactly the same as at sea level. It's about 21%.
Wait, really? It's the same percentage?
It is. What changes is the barometric pressure. Because you have less atmosphere pushing down on you from above, the air molecules simply spread further apart. So with every single breath you take, your lungs are physically pulling in fewer oxygen molecules.
Oh, wow. So your body just instantly panics because it's literally suffocating on a microscopic level.
Precisely. Your blood isn't carrying enough oxygen to your brain and muscles, so your heart rate spikes to try and pump more blood to compensate. Eventually, your kidneys will detect the low oxygen and release a hormone called erythropoietin, which stimulates your bone marrow to produce more red blood cells to carry what little oxygen is available.
But I imagine that adaptation process takes time.
It takes 24 to 48 hours. And this is where the logistics of the guide become absolute law. When you land in Cusco, you do not go for a run.
No.
You do not hit the hotel and immediately plan a massive walking tour. You do not eat a heavy steak, and you absolutely do not drink alcohol because your body is already dehydrated from the altitude and it's working in overdrive.
You essentially have to treat yourself like fragile cargo for that first day. You walk at half your normal speed. You drink copious amounts of coca tea, which, the dossier notes, contains trace amounts of alkaloids that indigenous populations have used for millennia to stimulate breathing and combat fatigue.
It's essential. Because if you try to power through it, if you let your traveler's ego say, oh, I'm fit, I go to the gym, I can handle this, the altitude will humble you rapidly.
Yeah, you will spend the next 3 days of your incredibly expensive trip just staring at the ceiling of your hotel room with a migraine.
Taking the physiology seriously is the single most important logistical step of the journey. Because once your red blood cell count adapts and you can finally breathe normally again, you can actually look around and absorb where you are.
And where you are is the former capital of the Tawantinsuyu, the massive Inca Empire that stretched all across South America before the Spanish conquest in 1533. And what I find so arresting about Cusco is that you don't even have to go to a museum to see this history.
No, it's everywhere.
The architecture of the city itself tells the entire brutal story of that clash of civilizations in a single glance.
The visual evidence of the conquest is literally baked into the streets. When the Spanish arrived, they systematically dismantled the sacred Inca temples and palaces. But instead of clearing the land, they actually used the incredibly stable Inca stone foundations as the literal base for their massive colonial churches and mansions.
The most dramatic, almost aggressive example of this is the Coricancha.
The Golden Temple of the Sun.
Right. This was the absolute center of the Inca universe.
Yeah.
The walls were allegedly covered in solid gold sheets. It was their most sacred site. And today, the Spanish Dominican convent of Santo Domingo is built directly on top of it.
It's jarring.
You walk down the street and you see these austere, perfectly fitted, dark gray Inca stones making up the bottom half of the wall, and suddenly it violently transitions into colonial arches and a Spanish Baroque church tower on the top half.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is the ultimate visual metaphor for Peru's history. But there is this incredible architectural irony here. The region is highly seismically active. Over the centuries, massive earthquakes have ripped through Cusco, and every time one hits, the heavy, rigid Spanish colonial structures crack, they crumble, and they collapse.
But the Inca foundations underneath, they don't move a millimeter.
Exactly. Because the Inca understood the extreme geography. They didn't use mortar. They engineered their walls using trapezoidal doors, inward-leaning walls, and this gravity-locked dry stone technique. The stones are cut with such multi-angled precision that during an earthquake, they essentially dance.
They dance.
Yeah, they shift with the seismic waves and then lock perfectly back into place once the ground stops shaking. The colonial architecture tries to fight the earth and loses. The Inca architecture moves with it and survives.
That is just, it's ancient engineering that modern builders still study. And speaking of impossible engineering, we have to talk about Sacsayhuamán.
Yeah.
This is the massive fortress and ceremonial site sitting on a steep hill directly overlooking Cusco.
Right.
The dossier mentions you can walk there from the central plaza in about 45 minutes.
Though, keeping our hypoxia discussion in mind, taking a 10-minute taxi ride up the hill for your first visit is usually the much wiser choice.
Fair point. Save your lungs, right?
Yeah.
But when you get up there, you are confronted with a scale that literally breaks your brain. Sacsayhuamán features these 3 parallel, zigzagging walls. And these walls are made of limestone blocks that weigh up to 125 tons.
It's unbelievable.
Let that sink in for a second. 125 tons.
And we are talking about a civilization that did not have iron tools. They did not have draft animals like oxen or horses. And they did not use the wheel for transportation.
So how did they do it? When I read this, I was genuinely expecting the text to just shrug and say, it's a mystery. But they actually know the mechanisms, right? It's like playing a game of 3D Tetris with boulders the size of city buses.
It's astonishing. To move them, they utilized massive earthen ramps and inclined planes, pulling the stones on log rollers using thousands of organized laborers. But the fitting, the way they got these massive irregular shapes to slot together so perfectly that you still can't slide a piece of paper between them today, that was done through pure, painstaking abrasion.
Wait, they were basically sanding them down.
Essentially, yes. They used harder river rocks, like hematite cobblestones, to literally pound and grind the limestone blocks into shape.
Wow.
They would trace the exact contours of the stone below, hoist the new stone up, grind away the excess, test the fit, and repeat. It took an unimaginable amount of time, labor, and state-sponsored organization. It is localized genius applied to extreme geography.
It really puts our modern obsession with speed and convenience into perspective. But Cusco, despite all this monumental architecture, was primarily the administrative and religious capital. To see where the Incas actually grew the food to sustain this massive empire, you have to leave the high altitude of the city and physically descend. You drop down into what is known as the Sacred Valley.
The Urubamba Valley, and as a traveler, you feel the geographical relief almost immediately.
Oh, absolutely. You are dropping from 3,400 meters down to between 2,600 and 3,000 meters. The air is tangibly thicker, the sun feels warmer, the landscape just explodes into this lush, fertile green.
The Incas considered this the most sacred landscape in their realm, guided by the Urubamba River, which they actually viewed as the earthly reflection of the Milky Way.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But it wasn't just a spiritual center, it was their breadbasket. And more importantly, it was a place where living history and highly advanced indigenous science intersected.
And you can still see that living history today in the high villages along the valley, places like Chinchero and Pisac. Let's look at Chinchero. It sits high up above the valley floor, and it is famous for its textiles. But this isn't some mass-produced factory output. Women in traditional dress are still utilizing ancient pre-Columbian dyeing and weaving techniques.
And the chemistry of their natural dyes is a science in itself.
Exactly. To get that vibrant, iconic Andean red, they don't use a synthetic chemical. They use cochineal, which is a tiny parasitic insect that lives on cactus plants.
Right.
They harvest the insects, dry them, grind them up, and then mix them with acidic citrus or alkaline minerals to shift the color spectrum from bright scarlet all the way to deep purple. They're literally pulling colors out of the local biology to dye alpaca wool. And the crucial point here is that this is a genuine artisanal community holding onto their heritage, not a staged theme park for tourists.
The same authenticity applies to Pisac. Most travelers only know Pisac for its massive artisan market on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. They show up, buy some souvenirs, and leave. But right above the town, towering over the valley, are some of the most extensive and well-preserved Inca agricultural terraces and ruins in the region. Most people skip them entirely simply because the market is easier to access.
Which is a massive missed opportunity.
Right.
But if we really want to blow the listener's mind regarding what the Incas were doing in the Sacred Valley, we have to talk about Moray.
Ah, Moray. That is where ancient agriculture meets advanced thermodynamics.
Picture this. You are walking across a relatively flat, high plateau. Suddenly, the earth just drops away into this massive, perfect circular depression. It looks like a pristine meteor crater, but the sides are stepped with massive concentric stone terraces going down, down, down into the earth. From the sky, it literally looks like a giant piece of abstract geometric art.
It is stunning to look at, but its purpose was entirely functional.
Right. So what does this all mean? Why would a civilization expend thousands of hours of intense labor to carve a giant, perfectly circular funnel into the ground? What were they trying to achieve?
Well, the prevailing scientific consensus is that Moray functioned as a massive open-air agricultural laboratory.
Wait, a laboratory carved out of dirt and stone?
Exactly. Let's go back to the mechanism of thermodynamics. Because of the sheer depth of this bowl, the step design, and the way the sun hits it at different angles throughout the day, it creates a series of entirely isolated microclimates.
Okay, I'm following.
The stone-retaining walls of the terraces absorb intense solar radiation during the day. At night, when the ambient air temperature plummets, those stones slowly release the trapped heat.
So they are basically creating natural space heaters for the plants.
Precisely. Because of this, the temperature at the bottom terrace can be up to 15 degrees Celsius or 27 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the temperature at the top terrace. By moving crops up and down these steps, the Incas were tricking the plants into thinking they were growing at vastly different altitudes.
That is unbelievable. They were essentially hacking the geography. They used this site to experiment. They would take a seed from the Amazon jungle, plant it at the bottom, and over generations, slowly move it up the terraces to acclimatize it to the freezing highlands.
It's brilliant.
It explains how they managed to engineer those 3,000 varieties of potatoes we talked about earlier. It is a brilliant, undeniable display of the pre-industrial scientific method.
And this entire valley, the Sacred Valley, with its laboratories and terraces, acts as both a physical and a historical funnel. If you follow the Urubamba River northwest, letting the water guide you lower and lower into the mountains, the vegetation gets thicker, the air gets wetter, and it naturally leads you to the ultimate destination of the entire Andean circuit.
The crown jewel. The reason most people book the ticket in the first place. Machu Picchu.
The lost city.
We all know the photo.
Yeah.
The perfectly preserved, ruined city, sitting on a saddle between two jagged peaks, surrounded by mist. It is burned into our collective consciousness. But, and this is the big but, this dossier drops a massive, heavy reality check regarding the logistics of visiting in 2026.
The era of spontaneous travel to Machu Picchu is definitively over.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and thinking, oh, I'll just take a train to the town below, wake up early and buy a ticket at the gate, let me stop you right there. You cannot do that. You absolutely cannot just show up. The booking system is tighter than getting front row tickets to a Taylor Swift concert.
And there is a very necessary reason for that strictness.
Exactly. It's about preservation. The site is now tightly controlled through an incredibly rigid timed entry circuit system. Everything must be booked through the official Ministry of Culture platform _tubolito.cultura.pe. The daily visitor limit is fiercely enforced to prevent the physical stones from being ground to dust by millions of hiking boots.
Right.
If you are going in the peak dry season months of June and July, these tickets sell out weeks, sometimes months in advance.
You have to build your entire trip's logistics backwards from the exact hour your Machu Picchu ticket allows you to enter. It is vital to respect that reality because the site itself is vast. It sits at 2,430 meters, which surprisingly is actually 1,000 meters lower than Cusco, placing it right in the transition zone of the cloud forest.
Which means thicker air, thankfully.
Right, and it covers over 32,000 hectares. But how you physically arrive at that vastness completely dictates the psychological impact of the experience. The dossier outlines two primary approaches.
Okay, option one is the logistical standard, the 5:30 a.m. bus. You stay in Aguas Calientes, which is the tourist town trapped in the river gorge at the base of the mountain. Your alarm goes off in the pitch black. You stumble out of your hotel, get in a massive winding line with hundreds of other groggy people, and take a fleet of buses up a dizzying series of switchbacks to try and be among the very first group to enter the site just as the gates open at 6 a.m.
Now, you might be wondering, is that miserable early morning herd experience really worth it?
That's exactly what I'm asking. Is it a tourist trap? Should I just sleep in and go at 2 p.m. when the morning crowds have left?
Going in the afternoon is actually a highly recommended alternative for avoiding crowds. However, the reward for that brutal 4:30 a.m. alarm is the sunrise dynamic. When you enter at dawn, the entire site is often totally swallowed in a thick, white cloud forest mist. You can't see 10 feet in front of you.
Oh, wow.
But as the sun rises and the temperature shifts, that mist literally burns off and lifts like a theater curtain. Watching the jagged peak of Huayna Picchu suddenly materialize out of the fog, framing the ruins in complete silence before the mid-morning day trippers arrive. I mean, it is one of the genuinely transformative visual experiences on the planet.
Okay, that sounds magical. But then there's option two, the long way, the hard way, the classic Inca Trail.
This is the ultimate physical immersion into the geography.
This is a 4-day, 3-night trek that starts down in the valley near Ollantaytambo.
Mm-hmm.
You're carrying your gear, you're sleeping in tents, and you're literally walking in the footsteps of the Inca messengers. And it's punishing. You have to cross 3 distinct mountain passes.
The most notorious of which is Warmiwanyuska, or Dead Woman's Pass.
Just the name tells you everything you need to know. You're climbing hundreds of uneven, original stone steps up to an altitude of 4,215 meters. The hypoxia is screaming at you. But as you cross that pass, the ecosystem shifts around you. You move from stark, freezing alpine tundra down into lush, dripping, orchid-filled cloud forests.
It's total transformation.
You pass smaller, incredibly isolated Inca sites that the bus tourists will never see. Until finally, on the last morning, you wake up before dawn, hike the final stretch, and arrive at Intipuku, the Sun Gate.
And from the Sun Gate, you look down, and Machu Picchu is revealed beneath you, exactly as the Inca intended it to be seen by travelers approaching the sacred city.
It has to feel like the ultimate earned reward. But, just like the entrance tickets, the logistical reality of the trail is brutal. Permits for the classic Inca Trail are strictly capped at exactly 500 people per day. And that number includes all the guides, cooks, and porters. So the actual number of tourists is only around 200 a day.
They sell out 6 to 8 months in advance. But here is the crucial piece of advice from the dossier. If you miss that permit window, or if a 4-day high-altitude camping trek with no showers just isn't your travel style, do not panic.
Yeah.
There is no single right way to experience this. The Andes are threaded with alternative routes.
And some of them sound even more intense. You have the Salcantay trek, which is 5 days and takes you over a stunning 4,600-meter pass right next to a massive blue glacier before dropping down into the jungle.
Then you have the Lares trek, which is much more culturally focused. It is gentler, avoids the massive crowds entirely, and weaves through incredibly remote, high-altitude, indigenous weaving communities where life has barely changed in centuries.
Or, if you have a completely different risk profile, there is the Inca Jungle Trail, This one incorporates downhill mountain biking on sheer cliff roads, whitewater rafting, and zip lining across jungle canyons on the way to the ruins. It's about matching the extreme terrain to your personal psychological travel style.
Exactly. And the most fascinating thing about where Machu Picchu sits geographically is that it is a threshold. You are in the cloud forest. You are looking at orchids and hummingbirds. And if you simply keep walking, keep following those rivers east, letting gravity pull you down out of the Andes, you eventually hit the third and final great ecological zone, the most biodiverse terrestrial ecosystem on the planet.
The Amazon Basin, the selva. And as we learned earlier, this covers more than half of Peru.
It is an ocean of green, but the dossier brilliantly divides the practical Peruvian Amazon experience into two distinct, highly different regions, the north and the south.
Let's start with the north, anchored by the city of Iquitos. The history and logistics of this place are just wild. Iquitos is a massive, bustling city of 500,000 people, but it holds a unique global record. It is the largest city in the world that cannot be reached by road.
It is entirely locked in by the jungle and the rivers.
You cannot drive there from Lima or Cusco. You have to fly in or take a cargo boat up the Amazon River for a week. It became this bizarre, opulent boomtown in the late 19th century during the rubber boom, where European rubber barons built mansions decorated with Italian marble deep in the jungle.
It's so surreal.
And today, it serves as the gateway to the Pacaya-Samiria National Reserve.
The Pacaya-Samiria is known as the Forest of Mirrors. It's a massive wetland reserve. What makes the ecology here so distinct is the black water tributaries. The water is dyed a deep, dark tea color by the massive amounts of decaying organic matter and tannins from the forest floor.
It sounds spooky, but it is teeming with life. This northern sector is where you find the giant river otters, the anacondas, and the famous, incredibly surreal pink river dolphins.
And because it is so remote and watery, the logistics of visiting are different. This is the operational base for high-end river cruises. Vessels like the Aqua Expedition's ships operate here, offering highly refined, multi-night luxury immersions deep into the reserve, where your floating hotel literally moves with the river.
It's a spectacular, isolated experience. But if you are reading this dossier trying to plan a 2-week vacation, and you were already down in Cusco visiting Machu Picchu, flying all the way up to Iquitos in the north might completely break your itinerary, which is why the dossier heavily emphasizes the southern Amazon.
The region around Puerto Maldonado, accessing the Tambopata National Reserve.
Logistically, this is a dream. You take a quick 45-minute flight from Cusco, right over the Andes. You land in Puerto Maldonado, get on a motorized canoe, travel a couple hours up the river, and suddenly you are completely off the grid at a remote eco-lodge. It integrates perfectly into a standard mountain itinerary.
And while it might be easier to reach, the biological intensity is just as fierce. Tambopata gives you access to dense, primary rainforest walking trails, night excursions looking for caiman eyes reflecting in the flashlight beams, and one of the most visceral, chaotic biological phenomena documented in the guide.
The Macaw Clay Lick. The Colpa de Guacamayos. I want to paint the picture of this because it sounds like a sensory overload. Picture this. It is barely dawn. The jungle is waking up. You are sitting in complete silence on a wooden observation platform hidden in the trees, staring at a sheer, exposed clay bank on the side of the river.
And you are waiting.
Right. And then suddenly, as the sun hits the clay, the sky fills with hundreds of massive, brilliantly colored macaws, parrots, and parakeets. Reds, blues, yellows, greens. They descend out of the canopy in a chaotic, screaming flock and latch directly onto the vertical dirt wall. The sound of hundreds of giant wings flapping, the squawking, the vivid colors flashing against the brown earth, it is totally overwhelming.
It is a stunning visual, but as always, we must look at the biological why. Why are hundreds of birds risking predation to eat dirt? The scientific term is geophagy. These birds survive by eating a massive variety of jungle seeds and nuts, but many of those seeds contain high levels of toxic alkaloids, the tree's natural defense mechanism.
So the birds are basically poisoning themselves to eat?
Essentially, yes. To counteract this, they fly to these very specific clay banks. The clay here is incredibly rich in sodium and specific minerals that bind to the toxic alkaloids in their stomachs and neutralize them. It acts as an antacid and a detoxifier. They are consuming dirt as a biological necessity to survive their own diet. It's a daily, high-stakes medical ritual playing out right in front of you.
That is the perfect example of how the ecosystem here is just constantly adapting to itself. And speaking of adaptation, from the deep, humid jungle, the dossier swings us to another absolute geographic extreme. We are going back up, way up, to Lake Titicaca.
We went from sea level in Lima down into the Amazon basin, and now we are vaulting up to 3,810 meters in elevation.
This is the highest navigable lake on Earth, access to the city of Puno. The water is this deep, freezing steel blue. And historically, this is the mythological ground zero. The Incas believed that the sun god, Inti, birthed the very first Inca king and queen directly from the waters of Lake Titicaca.
It is a landscape of Genesis, but it is also home to a pre-Inca culture that has achieved a feat of engineering that is honestly hard to fathom until you are standing on it. I'm talking about the Uros people.
The Uros live on floating islands in the lake. But when you hear island, do not picture a piece of land surrounded by water. These aren't made of dirt or rock or wood. They are man-made platforms woven entirely out of a single plant, the totora reed that grows in the shallows of the lake.
And the physics of how they maintain these islands is incredible.
Everything is made of reeds. The ground you walk on is squishy reeds. The houses are reeds. Their famous ornate boats are reeds. It's like they figured out how to build a functioning multi-generational civilization on top of a giant floating organic sponge.
And it requires constant, endless labor. Because it's organic material sitting in water, the bottom layer of the island is constantly rotting away. To stop the island from sinking, the Uros must continuously harvest fresh reeds and lay them crisscross on the top layer.
It's a full-time job just keeping the ground under your feet.
It really is. The reeds also possess a natural capillary action, trapping air inside their hollow stems, which is what provides the massive buoyancy needed to hold the weight of an entire village.
It's an incredible adaptation to avoid conflict on the mainland. But the dossier does offer a very stark piece of advice here. Because the Uros Islands are so close to the city of Puno, they have become heavily impacted by mass tourism. The front islands can feel very transactional, almost like a museum exhibit where they immediately try to sell you souvenirs.
Which is why the guide insists that if you want a genuine immersion into the high-altitude lake culture, you must push past the initial boat tours. You need to travel further out into the deep lake.
It recommends islands like Amantani, where there are no hotels. You actually stay overnight in the adobe home of a local farming family, sharing their meals. Or Tequila Island, which is famous for its UNESCO-recognized textile tradition, where the men, not the women, are the master knitters, walking around the island knitting complex hats that indicate their social and marital status.
It's a completely isolated, silent world. Now, if you are listening to this and you have even more time, say 3 weeks or more, the dossier tosses out a few mind-blowing extensions that are totally off the main Lima-Cusco Amazon circuit.
Oh, the deep cuts. Let's hit a few of these. First, down in the south, you have Arequipa, known as the White City.
And it's called that because the entire historic center is built out of sillar, a bright white volcanic stone.
Right. Because the city sits literally in the shadow of Misti, a massive, perfectly symmetrical stratovolcano. That sillar stone is actually compressed, explosive volcanic ash from ancient eruptions. It makes the city glow in the sunlight. And Arequipa is the jumping-off point for the Colca Canyon, which is twice as deep as the Grand Canyon in the U.S.
It's massive.
You go there to stand on the edge of the abyss and watch Andean condors birds with a 10-foot wingspan riding the thermal updrafts rising from the canyon floor.
Then moving out to the dry coastal desert plateau, you have the Nazca Lines.
The ultimate geographical mystery. These are massive ancient geoglyphs, a monkey, a spider, a hummingbird, perfect geometric lines etched into the desert floor between 500 BCE and 500 CE.
The mechanism of their creation is fascinating. The desert surface is covered in dark, iron oxide-coated pebbles. The Nazca people simply scraped away those dark top stones to reveal the lighter sand underneath, using rudimentary surveying tools to maintain perfect proportions over massive distances. Because the desert is so windless and rainless, the lines simply stayed there for 2 millennia.
But the catch is, because they are so massive, you cannot see them from the ground. You have to book a 30-minute overflight in a tiny banking Cessna aircraft to look down on them. It's a turbulent, dizzying experience, but it's the only way to comprehend the scale.
Finally, if you want to go truly remote, far away from the Southern Tourist Trail, you head north into the high cloud forest to a place called Kulab.
This is wild. It's a massive, walled stone fortress built by the Chachapoyas culture known as the Warriors of the Clouds, centuries before the Incas even existed. To get there, you take a modern cable car over a plunging misty valley. The walls are up to 20 meters high, entirely covered in bromeliads and orchids. And the best part, It receives a tiny, microscopic fraction of the visitors that Machu Picchu gets. You practically have this ancient megalithic city to yourself.
Hearing all of these options, the Amazon rivers, the deep canyons, the massive desert geoglyphs, the floating islands, the high-altitude fortresses, it naturally induces a very specific psychological condition in travelers.
The FOMO is real. The fear of missing out hits so hard when you look at a map of Peru, which leads us directly into the final and perhaps most important section of this deep dive: how to practically structure your time without losing your mind.
The dossier addresses the psychology of pacing perfectly with this quote. Peru consistently expands to fill whatever time you give it.
That is such a crucial warning, because what happens is people get hit with what the guide calls traveler's greed. They have an 8-day vacation window, and they try to cram in Lima, Cusco, the Sacred Valley, Machu Picchu, a flight to the Amazon, and a bus to Lake Titicaca.
And what is the biological result of that greed?
Complete collapse. You are changing extreme altitudes every 48 hours. Your body is fighting hypoxia in Cusco, then sweating in the 90% humidity at the Amazon, then freezing on a boat in Puno. You spend half your vacation in airport security lines or on bumpy overnight buses. You end up exhausted, sick, and entirely disconnected from the place you are supposed to be experiencing.
To prevent this, the guide sets a hard, uncompromising baseline. 7 days is the absolute bare minimum required just to do the classic Circuit Lima, Cusco, the Sacred Valley, and Machu Picchu any justice. And that leaves zero room for delayed flights, altitude sickness recovery, or anything unexpected.
If you want to actually enjoy yourself, 10 days is the ideal sweet spot for a first trip. It allows the main Andean circuit to happen at a more human-breathable pace. You can actually sit in a plaza in Cusco and drink a coffee without rushing to a tour bus. And 10 days gives you the buffer to add one major extension, either Lake Titicaca or a 3-night Amazon lodge experience. Do not try to do both.
And pacing isn't just about the number of days you have, it's about matching those days to the right season. And this is where the geography throws one final massive paradox at the traveler.
Oh, this is fascinating.
The extreme elevation changes create radically different, entirely inverse climates in different parts of the country at the exact same time.
Let's break this down because it dictates what you pack. The primary season everyone talks about is the Andean dry season. This runs from May to October.
This is the prime time for the highlands. The weather system shifts. The skies over the Andes turn a brilliant, clear, piercing blue. The sun is intense, though the nights drop below freezing. This is absolutely the safest and best time for trekking the Inca Trail and visiting Machu Picchu without getting soaked.
June, July, and August are the absolute peak months. That is when the crowds are thickest, the Machu Picchu tickets sell out fastest, and hotel prices double. It's also when Inti Raymi happens, the massive, vibrant festival of the sun, which takes over the streets of Cusco every June 24th.
Conversely, you have the Andean wet season from November to April. The moisture blows in from the Amazon basin, hitting the mountains and dropping heavy daily afternoon downpours. The dry brown terraces suddenly turn lush, vibrant, and incredibly green.
The tourist numbers drop significantly during the wet season. It's peaceful and you can get great deals. But you have to accept the logistical reality. The Inca Trail gets incredibly muddy, landslides can delay trains, and the Ministry of Culture completely closes the classic Inca Trail for maintenance for the entire month of February.
But here is where the massive geographical paradox comes into play. Let's look back down at the coast.
Right. Remember that gray, moody sea mist in Lima we talked about? The Garua. Lima's weather is the exact, complete inverse of the Andes. When the mountains are experiencing their bright, sunny, perfect dry season from May to October, the Humboldt Current is at its strongest, locking Lima into its gray, misty, cool, damp season.
And when the mountains are getting pounded by torrential rain and mud from December to April, the atmospheric inversion layer over the coast breaks. Lima experiences bright sunshine, hot temperatures, and perfect beach weather.
It is so bizarre. You are almost guaranteed to experience two completely conflicting seasons on the exact same trip. You will be sweating in a t-shirt in Lima, and 24 hours later you will be wearing an alpaca wool sweater and a beanie shivering in a plaza in Cusco. You have to pack for two different planets.
It perfectly encapsulates the dual nature of the country.
Let's hit a few final rapid-fire logistical points before we wrap this up. Currency. The Peruvian sol is the standard. You need physical sols for small purchases, taxis, and artisan markets. But US dollars are surprisingly widely accepted at major hotels and higher-end restaurants, as long as the bills are perfectly crisp and unripped.
Regarding language, Spanish is the official language, though Quechua is still heavily and proudly spoken by millions throughout the highlands. If you are on the main tourist trail, Lima, Cusco, major hotels, English works perfectly fine. The tourism infrastructure is highly professional, but the moment you step off that trail into a local market or a taxi, basic Spanish is absolutely essential.
And finally, safety. When people hear South America, they sometimes carry outdated assumptions. The dossier's guidance is highly reassuring. The main tourist districts we've discussed, Miraflores, Barranco, the historic center of Cusco, the Sacred Valley, are heavily policed and very safe.
You don't need paranoia, you just need normal urban vigilance.
Exactly. Don't flash expensive jewelry. Beware of pickpockets in dense, crowded markets like Pisac. Don't hail random unmarked taxis off the street at night. Use Uber in Lima or have your hotel call a registered cab. Use your hotel safe for your passport. Just employ basic, smart travel common sense, and the country is incredibly welcoming.
So when we pull all of this together, the food, the hypoxia, the ruins, the jungle, what does a trip to Peru ultimately demand of the traveler?
Looking at this entire dossier, the overarching lesson is clear. Peru isn't a passive vacation. It's not a beach resort where you just lie in a chair and consume margaritas. It's not a city where you just look out the window of a tour bus. Peru is an extreme environment that you must actively adapt to. You have to humble yourself and respect the altitude changing the oxygen levels in your blood.
Absolutely.
You have to intellectually engage with the incredibly complex, fused ecosystems sitting right there on your dinner plate at Central. You have to physically exert yourself to navigate the ancient earthquake-proof stones. It demands your physical and mental presence.
And it deeply rewards that presence, because when you engage with it, Peru shows you exactly what human beings are capable of when they deeply scientifically understand their environment, rather than just fighting it. Think back to Moray, that massive circular Inca agricultural laboratory carved into the Sacred Valley. They built a localized thermodynamics instrument into the side of a mountain to acclimatize their crops to extreme weather shifts, saving their empire from famine.
A completely localized solution to a geographical problem.
Exactly. And today, modern global agriculture is struggling immensely. We are facing rapid climate change, shifting weather patterns, and failing monocrops. It makes you wonder, as we look toward a highly uncertain environmental future, what other ancient, forgotten scientific solutions might still be hiding out there in the dirt of the Andes, just waiting for us to rediscover them.
Wow. That is a heavy, incredible thought to leave with. From the earthquake-proof stones of Cusco in the morning, to sweating in the cloud forest of Machu Picchu in the afternoon, to eating a 50-hour short rib in the misty cliffs of Lima at night. It's just a Tuesday in Peru. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning the world around you, and maybe, just maybe, start checking those flight prices to Lima.
You've been listening to Beyond the Horizon, the podcast by Area Voyages. The full article for this episode is available at www.areavoyages.com. Remember to like, share the podcast, and leave a review to help promote our work. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. Until next time, safe travels.